As someone who loves overanalyzing things to death, some of my favourite pieces of fiction are the ones that can be interpreted in different ways, something that anyone can get something out of regardless of what it's about. Like movies, music, and shows. And even if you disagree with the interpretation someone made regarding its story and meaning, you can still see why they came to that conclusion. Nothing else has quite scratched that itch for me in recent years, like Yume Nikki. Prior to me actually playing it for the first time, I was very aware of its existence and its legacy, and especially the influence on indie games such as Undertale, Amori, Lisa the First, and the 8-bit sequences of Five Nights at Candy's Free. But I had no idea what it was actually about. That was until I finally checked out the Steam page and saw that it was free, and as a cheapskate who hates rinsing money, I decided to bite the bullet and download it on my horrendous, disgraceful waste of space HP laptop to see what all the hype was about. And ever since then, I've been unable to stop thinking about it. From the deeply uncomfortable atmosphere to the incredibly surreal settings you walk through, I have been unable to stop thinking about it ever since I've played it. This game has left my mind in a death grip, and I decided to make this video for the sole purpose of scratching that itch. So with all that said, let's start with the parts of the game I have the most and least to say about. The gameplay is by far the easiest thing to talk about due to how simple it is. Hell, the gameplay tutorial is actually the first thing you see when you open the game aside from the menu screen. One thing you're going to have to get used to regarding the gameplay is walking, because my god, you do a lot of walking in this game. It's basically a giant walking simulator where you can go wherever you want, whenever you want, and it's really weird and it may or may not leave lingering images burned in your brain on your off hours. But before all of that, how about a little setup? This is Madotsuki. I can absolutely guarantee that I butchered that. And as you can see, she doesn't want to leave her room. At all. And the only thing you can really do is play this lovely little game called Nasu, where you jump and eat things in order to get more points. It is also guaranteed to give you that classic gamer rage. Seriously, why is it so hard? You can also go up to the balcony where you'll be met with nothing. It's pretty boring out here, I can't lie. But when you go to sleep, that is where the fun begins. When you're asleep, you can actually go through Madotsuki's apartment door, and what you'll find is the Nexus. This acts as the hub world to all 12 of the dream worlds you can venture into by keeping its doors in one neat and tidy place. Don't get used to this. Order in this game is a rare occurrence, and in these worlds you can find things that can make the constant walk cycles a little more bearable. These adorable little eggs are called effects, and although most of them are just cosmetic changes like blonde hair and poop hair, okay. Some of them can actually help you out quite a bit when you're traversing all the different dream worlds, and the biggest lifesaver in this game, by far in my opinion, is the bike effect that can be found in the graffiti world. It will make you go a lot faster than you normally would, and it makes exploring places less menial and a lot more enjoyable. However, you won't find them as eggs. They can actually be found as objects or through NPCs. Interacting with this frog NPC in the forest world gives you the frog effect, and interacting with this little guy in the lamp world will give you the lamp effect. And it doesn't stop there. There are also more worlds within the dream worlds known as deeper locations. You can access this more through the graffiti world, you can access the dense woods through the puddle world, and you can even go to hell! However, with a lot to explore, it's likely that you're going to end up lost. And if you do get lost and are unable to return to the Nexus, there is one key that you can always count on. The 9 key. No, really, this thing will be your ride or die throughout the Yume Nikki experience. Just press it and you'll wake up back in Madotsuki's room like nothing happened, and you save by going over to the dream diary on Madotsuki's desk. Get it? Because Yume Nikki is dream diary in English. I need to stop. So we've got the basics down. Wonderful. But why are we doing any of this? Why are there so many doors? Why are there 24 of these bloody things? And of course, what is the story? Well, let me tell you the plot and narrative of Yume Nikki. There isn't one. Like, No joke, there is no story to be found here. Storylines, I barely know her. The only context you get is through the tutorial at the beginning, and that's basically it. You get nothing after that. You can do whatever you want in any time frame you choose, and this game absolutely thrives on that. The fact that there's no context to anything that's happening adds to the experience rather than taking away from it. There's no dialogue either, which really helps with how isolating it feels. Hell, there's even no internal dialogue, which made the intrigue levels I felt while playing through this game the first time even stronger, since I couldn't get a grasp on what the hell was going on throughout my entire playthrough. But wait, if there's no context in-game, there might be context in other places, possibly from the developer? Which would be the case if I knew anything about them. Yeah. To those out of the loop regarding this game's information and history, almost nothing is known about Kikiyama, the game's developer. And this isn't a Frank Ocean situation either, where he's just elusive. No, they're just as mysterious as the game itself. And to really give you a grasp on how little is known about them, some people actually thought that they died in an earthquake back in 2011 due to their lack of presence anywhere online. But luckily this wasn't the case, since it was confirmed that they were overseeing production of the game's 2018 remake, which may have the most convoluted title of all time, but maybe that's just me. Oh, and they approve of all the merch that gets made. The only evidence that they're still alive is because of supplementary material. I can't make this up. However, very recently, he did something that no one thought he'd ever do. They did the unthinkable. They did an interview with none other than Toby Fox. I've seen a lot of posts talk about how weird and awkward the interview was, which, yeah, no shit. This is the same man who covered himself in foam. Of course it's gonna be a little weird. There were a few rules regarding how it was going to be done though. 1, Kikiyama got to choose how many questions they were going to answer, that being 10. And 2, they were going to respond with yes or no answers and nothing else. And while the answers to some of these questions are cool to see, and clarity regarding anything Yume Nikki related is a rarity, one of them in particular really interested me. That being the first one, where they end up confirming that the version myself and many others have played was not intended to be the final version of the game. Yeah, the game had previous versions, but some of them have become lost media, so you can't play them anymore, unfortunately. There are screenshots though, and I think it's really cool to see how much different locations in the game have changed over time. The Neon World in particular looks really different, and I think it's really funny that there's a possibility that the final version could just drop out of nowhere one day. Kikiyama's website is still active, so who knows, it's possible. And the fact that the only thing we found out about Kikiyama from the interview outside of things related to the game was his Denny's order, I don't know, I just think that's really funny. Now that the obligatory Kikiyama discussion is out of the way, it's time to talk about the thing that kept me coming back for more. The best aspect of this game, in my opinion, is its immersion, and the atmosphere and its soundtrack are by far the biggest contributing factors to this. And how it handles the concept of dream worlds is really unique as well. Now, whenever dreams are shown in fiction, what is normally portrayed? Whimsical and colourful landscapes meant to give off a sense of wonder and whimsy, but in Yume Nikki, it's the complete opposite. A majority of the different dream worlds you explore are these strange, eerie and dark locations that just give you a sense of pure discomforting dread. And in games like this, you can normally engage in conversation with at least one NPC to really get a feel of what to do and how the place works. But here, you don't get that comfort, because no one in this game talks to you even if you choose to engage with them. Half of the NPCs you find in this game either have it out for you or pretend you don't even exist, like you're a stranger even to your own mind, which is a terrifying concept, and Yume Nikki makes it work wonders. No matter where you go and no matter what you do, you always feel unwelcome, even in the mall, which is one of the most populated areas in the game. Everyone avoids you like you shouldn't even be there, which is honestly really sad. Hell, a lot of the sprite designs in general help with this tone of unease. Just look at these things, for Christ's sake. Not the most disturbing sprites I've seen, at least the Painful Joy monsters takes the crown for that, but they still look really unnerving and vary in tone from terrifying to sad to Scrimblow. And even though the game technically isn't in the horror genre. There are moments that are indisputably horror, but I'll get to those in a later segment. I think the one moment that best describes how I felt playing through a majority of the game was when I first played through the forest world, which, fun fact, is actually the first world I explored in-game. Oh god, what is this? Why does the music sound like that? This is horrible. Nothing matters. Nothing makes sense. It's almost like a dream. And in that moment, I completely understood the hype this game had received over the years, and the longer I played, those feelings remained true. But I was so invested and I just couldn't stop exploring. Hell, this game's depiction of dreams in general are some of the more realistic interpretations I've seen. The worlds aren't fully thought out places, which is why I think most of them look so barren and empty. Look how much open space there is in the Eyeball world and in Neon world. Not just them either, so many of the worlds have these big open spaces with objects and people haphazardly placed in different spots. And something else that really elevates the atmosphere of Yume Nikki is its soundtrack. Now, I don't know shit about music theory, but in games with similar visuals to Yume Nikki, a lot of the songs and soundtracks have loops, but there's progression to them like Death by Glamour or Men's Hair Club. However, Yume Nikki doesn't have that. Every song is a continuous loop. The songs should progress further, but they don't. They're short, they're creepy, and I love them. The songs in general fit the dream worlds perfectly. The dark world is dreary and droning, the forest world has these lingering chimes that ring in your ears, the snowy world is the least anxiety-inducing out of the 12 dream worlds, which makes sense since it's the only world that actually looks put together. The graffiti world is similar to this in a way, but the low droning makes it have tension. The neon world also sounds really inviting since it's fairly tame compared to the other worlds in the game. I don't know, man, it's just nice to walk through and to see these little guys just vibing. Even in the deeper locations this rings true, like how the Famicom world has more of a chiptune sound to fit the games of the era, and the Martian underground sounds so depressing and it exudes loneliness as you see poor Mars-san crying in a hunched position, unable to leave the room it's stuck in. So yeah, from eerie and depressing ambient soundscapes to joyful little tunes and club bangers, the atmosphere is added on tremendously thanks to the songs. And that's not even the most discussed aspect of the game. Due to lack of context to anything that happens in-game, a lot of people have taken it upon themselves to make sense of it all. Why does Madotsuki refuse to leave her room? Why are these deep-fried PNGs everywhere? Is Nasu a metaphor for divorce? The last one was a joke, but I wouldn't be surprised if anyone actually came up with that. So, I decided to use my overthinking skills to come up with an interpretation of my own. However, I will not be using supplementary material like the remake, the graphic novel, and the manga as evidence for my claims. Also, if you're planning on reading the manga if this is your first time hearing about it, here's some advice. Don't! It's really bad. The only English translation that exists sucks, and some of the art is cool, but most of it makes me really uncomfortable, and not in a good way either. Right, first things first. This is Madotsuki. And she ain't right. This is the one thing everyone agrees on. Madotsuki is mentally ill. Look at some of these dream worlds for God's sake. No stable mind's gonna be thinking of stuff like this. Why doesn't she want to leave her room? Well, the common consensus is that something happened. Something so bad that she just refused to go outside for months on end. Which leads into the basic summary of my interpretation. Madotsuki has an anxiety disorder and may or may not have agoraphobia. Oh, and if I had to guess what Madotsuki's age is, I would say she's somewhere in this age range here. Let's start off simple. The Aztec imagery. This stuff is everywhere in the game. Every time you have a dream world that has a background, it is a guarantee that one of these microwaved PNGs is going to be floating around. But why? Why? This is going to sound really boring, but I honestly think the reason why it's present everywhere is because it's just one of Madotsuki's interests. Look at the rug in her room. It's clearly something she has an interest in. Maybe these PNGs stick around as a symbol of comfort for her. Something that stays with her no matter where she chooses to go in the recesses of her mind, which is quite wholesome, but don't get used to it. It only goes downhill from here. Now, with the dream worlds, I think they represent things she fears due to the experiences she's had in life. Like how she finds things as mundane as a forest and candles as these unfamiliar and alien locations. Maybe she felt unwanted everywhere. No matter where she went, no matter what she did, she just felt wrong. So that reflects in both the tone of the worlds and the NPCs. However, While most of these weird NPCs are just these creatures that just exist, some of them are a little more than that. And the one that's the most discussed by far is Poniko. But why? Well, I'll tell you. Don't you think she looks too normal? Look at some of the other NPC designs. Some of them are human looking or human adjacent, but they have attributes that make them uncanny, like how Masuda looks like this, and the Toraningen having bird-like features in the supplementary material. But with Poniko, she's the most human-looking character in the game aside from Midotsuki, and guess what? She's also found in the most normal location in the game, that being the snow world. Ironically enough, it stands out to me the most because it actually looks like a complete location you'd find in a game like this. Look at how there's no blank space, nothing frightening or off-looking. And even the deeper location isn't strange. The Pink Sea is the calmest and most serene location in the game by far. Look at the pastel pinks, the calming music, and when you actually go to see Poniko chilling in her weird cone house, her theme is incredibly happy and inviting. So, if we're going by the theory that the dream worlds represent places or things that Midotsuki has had negative experiences with, I think the snow world and the pink sea are the outliers. The blank spaces present in the different dream worlds could represent repression that's filled with something she actually likes, hence the Aztec imagery, but in the snow world it's the complete opposite. I like to think that Poniko was someone Midotsuki actually knew in life and was friends with, someone who helped her come out of her shell a little more, which is why she's seen in such a positive light compared to everything else in the game. However, if you flick the light switch in her room enough times, this happens. Now, even if you haven't played the game, you may have seen this sprite. This is Woah, and they are often believed to symbolize the reason why Midotsuki has shut herself off from the world. What I think happened was that Poniko died and Midotsuki was there to witness it, and with that, her anxieties increased tenfold, causing her to blame herself and ultimately shut herself off from the world. And this could reflect in how some of the NPCs in the dream worlds treat her, and why I think some of them represent people that she knew in life. Monoe is someone she still sees in a good light because of her smile. Moniko is shown as a run-over body in a dense wood, so it's likely that she's either dead or she left Midotsuki while she was grieving Poniko. Masuda could be a music therapist she had when she was younger, and even though she can barely remember what he looks like, she still seems to remember him fondly. But the Toraningen are different. It's likely that they bullied Midotsuki in real life and it only got worse when they found out she was there when Poniko died, and it affected her so much that even in her dreams they still torment her. And there's one scene in the wilderness that just hurts me. Here you can find 3 Toraningen having a party, and no matter what effect you equip, you can't join them. Midotsuki probably wanted to be their friend at one point and they looked down on her, but despite all the bullying, she still had that desire to be included. So that's it, right? Midotsuki suffered from severe anxiety, and after her closest friend died, she shut herself off from the world, trapping herself in a cruel cycle she can't escape from, awake or asleep. Well, not quite. There's something else to all this. In the number world, you can stab this little fella with the knife effect and you can enter a new location. And here you'll find a door that's identical to the one in Midotsuki's apartment. And if you choose to go through it, you'll be met with the scariest event and creature in the entire game. The face. I know a lot of people laud the Woah effect as the scariest one in the game, which, yeah, I get why, considering how menial the process of getting Woahs show up actually is. You're guaranteed to at least get one jump scare. But the face takes the cake for me. The outlines you can barely make out, the constant flashing colours, and the music, that goddamn music, man. The way it just drones on and grows louder and louder until Madotsuki forces herself to wake up without any input from the player is the stuff of nightmares. Now, what the hell does this represent? Well, I think the face represents a Rorschach test. You know, these things. Rorschach tests are done to determine a patient's mental state depending on what they see in the ink blots. So the outlines of the face is what she saw, and it's likely that it scared her because the name of the song that plays when the face event occurs is called I Don't Want to See That. This is the only thing in Madotsuki's dreams that scares her to this degree. And since this is an image that was shown to her in therapy, and she wakes up immediately after the event, I think the face serves as a literal wake-up call to Madotsuki that her coping mechanism that is the Nexus is just making her worse. And a lot of playthroughs I've seen where people experience the face event, it has them completing the game pretty quickly afterwards. Speaking of which, how does the game end? If you return to the Nexus after collecting all the effects, you can activate them and turn them into little eggs like I mentioned earlier so they can kind of just chill there. And when you wake up, this happens. Oh, that's... wow. Okay. So yeah, the game ends by Madotsuki committing suicide by jumping off her balcony, unable to handle the fact that the coping mechanism she used for so long was no longer feasible. Or did she? A lot of people have pointed out that these jellyfish-looking things in the credits slightly resemble lotus flowers, which symbolize rebirth from a dark place. So maybe she isn't dead. Maybe the wake-up call from Face actually worked and the old her, the one that was scared of everything and anything, is dead. And she's finally decided to leave her room and experience life again. Both the good and the bad. Do I think I figured the game out? Hell no! I don't think of this as an explanation at all. I just thought it'd be fun to come up with. So, if you're interested in checking it out, I highly recommend it. As I said earlier, it's free on Steam and there's moments that aren't just scary. Again, at its core, it's an exploration game. Anyway, that's enough from me. I'm gonna go back and listen to the soundtrack now. Peace.